why is there sickness in the world? You know, why do we suffer through things like war and chaos? I mean, these aren't just philosophical musings, are they? They feel really fundamental to being human.
They really do.
But what if the answer wasn't about like random tragedy or some kind of divine punishment, but something we collectively created?
Mm.
And what if really accepting that just radically changed how you view reality itself?
That's pretty much the core of what we're diving into today. The sources we're looking at are, well, they're quite powerful. It's a series of personal notes, messages, really conversational from someone with a lot of experience in a specific spiritual independent study program. We'll just call it the course.
Okay.
And these notes were shared with another student who was, really grappling with some of the toughest, most out there concepts in the material.
Right. So our mission here is, well, it's not exactly simple. We're trying to pull out and distill the course's main ideas about why we suffer. This whole concept of separation, the nature of reality. Is it illusion? Is it eternity?
Yeah, big questions.
Huge. And also this intense process of spiritual healing, which the source basically calls mind training.
But before we jump right in, it feels really important to mention the source's own perspective on this. The person sharing these insights is very clear, like explicitly states they are not a teacher, not an expert.
Okay.
They frame it more like sharing their song, their own understanding, which they admit is imperfect. And this really sets the stage. The advice stresses that you, the student, have to rely entirely on the Holy Spirit for interpretation because the course itself was designed for independent study.
That really reframes it, doesn't it? We're not getting dogma here. We're getting insights from a fellow learner, someone deep in the material.
Exactly.
And the source gives some practical advice too for anyone starting out, basically, try to get through the first 50 lessons.
That initial hump.
Yeah. They mentioned the beginning is pretty heavy on outlining our current predicament, all the negativity, the problems,
Yeah.
before it shifts towards more positivity in the solutions.
Right. Sets the stage before offering the way out.
Okay, let's try and unpack this core issue then. If God is defined as like capital L love, pure love, no judgment, no malice, why would that God allow suffering? Sickness, war. It's the immediate tough question the sources bring up.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets, well, really interesting.
It does. And the course offers an answer that's frankly incredibly radical. It says,
Yeah,
we created this mess
we did.
through using our free will. The source emphasizes that God gave humanity this incredible power, the power of creation, essentially. But we chose separation. We chose to see ourselves as separate from that unity, from God.
Right.
And in that moment, that choice, we apparently created bodies. We created the whole ego thought system and this foundational original thought of separation.
So wait, if I break my leg or there's a terrible war happening somewhere, you're saying the course suggests those aren't just random events or, external tragedies. They're more like symptoms, manifestations of that original separation thought.
That's precisely the idea presented. The sources are really emphatic. God didn't create sickness or guilt or the fear that kind of fuels this whole cycle of suffering.
Okay.
The idea is if we had never chosen separation, we wouldn't even have bodies in the way we experience them, and the world wouldn't appear as a place of pain and conflict. Sickness, in this view, is kind of the ego's way of proving the separation is real.
Proving it's real.
Yeah, proving we're vulnerable, we're individuals cut off from God and each other. It validates the ego's existence, you see.
That is profound.
Yeah.
But it also brings up a huge potential issue, right? When you say we created this mess, especially as someone who's dealing with a serious illness or loss, it can sound a lot like victim blaming. How does the source handle that? Because that's a really sensitive point.
It's a crucial point, and the source addresses it directly. It's really important to understand this isn't seen as like your personal fault in this lifetime.
Okay, good.
The sources stress that this thought of separation is incredibly deep, almost foundational. It's described as a collective subconscious agreement. It's woven into the very fabric of our perceived identity as humans. We're all kind of swimming in it, participating in this original collective, well, mistake is one way to put it.
So it's not about pointing fingers.
Not at all. The source clarifies it's not about blaming yourself or anyone else. It's about recognizing that the human condition itself, as we experience it, is built on this shared foundational error in thought.
Okay, that nuance changes everything. It makes it less personal blame and more recognizing a collective pattern.
Exactly.
And if the cause is in our collective mind, this deep separation thought, then the healing also have to be in our mind, which actually makes it incredibly empowering, doesn't it?
It really does. The implication, according to the source, is that if we could actually manage to focus only on love, positivity, and union with God in all instances,
Hmm.
like a complete undoing of that separation thought,
Yep.
it would instantly result in heaven on earth. No sickness, no conflict. It puts the ultimate responsibility, but also the ultimate solution right back in our minds.
Wow. Okay. So what's the mechanism then? How do we make that massive internal shift?
Forgiveness, that's the primary tool mentioned over and over.
Forgiveness.
Self forgiveness and forgiving the world, forgiving appearances. Forgiveness is central because it's the active way you look past the symptoms, the sickness, the war, the judgment, and you recognize the shared error underneath it all, the separation. And in doing that, you start to dismantle the ego story.
That ability to forgive something that feels so real. I mean, our world feels incredibly solid. That leads us straight into the next big, maybe the most challenging concept,
Mm,
the nature of reality itself.
mhm.
We're being asked here to consider that this whole world, everything we experience, is actually an illusion, a waking dream. The source calls it an esoteric concept, and it can feel really threatening, especially if we're attached to our bodies, our personalities, as the ultimate truth.
Oh, it definitely feels threatening to the ego because the ego's entire game depends on time and matter being real, right?
Right.
So the source describes our 3D world, our physical life, as a waking dream. It explicitly draws parallels to very Eastern teaching. The idea is just like a dream you have at night vanishes when you wake up.
Yeah.
This whole lifetime, this whole perceived reality will seem just as unreal when we fully awaken from it.
Okay. So this is the dream.
Mhm.
What's considered ultimate reality, capital R reality.
The ultimate reality, yeah, capital R, is defined as eternity. It's described as this timeless, boundless state, pure unity consciousness, pure capital L love.
Capital L love.
And what's fascinating is how it's described. In eternity, there are apparently no opposites in the way we understand them. We think of love versus hate or love versus fear.
Right.
But in this state, the source says the opposite of love is just more love. It's
Yeah.
pure, always expanding creation, bliss, total unity. Our entire lifetime here is seen as just a tiny, finite drop in eternity.
It's just a drop. Okay. And who are we then within this dream framework?
Mhm.
Are we just individual dream characters or something else?
The source uses some really interesting imagery to explain the self. We're described as maybe a little shard of God, or perhaps more accurately, collectively, we are the one child of God.
The one child.
Yeah, the concept is sort of likened to a hologram. You know how every tiny piece of a hologram contains the whole picture?
Uh,
It's kind of like that. Each individual consciousness holds the blueprint of the whole, and all of us together are the unified whole. The individual spark exists, but it's never truly separate from the total oneness.
And the separation idea, where does that fit into the hologram picture?
That's basically when we fell asleep. We bought into the illusion of being separate little pieces,
Yeah.
forgot we contained the whole, and started living this waking dream.
Okay.
The sources are pretty clear that our true self, our higher self with a capital S, that part of us is actually in heaven already, still connected to eternity, still in that state of unity. The part of us experiencing earth is just the part that's currently asleep, kind of out of touch with that true timeless reality.
Okay, that gives our lives here a really complicated purpose then. If reality is ultimately a dream, why does time even matter? What's the point of this incarnation, this life? What does it all mean for like our daily choices?
Yeah, that's a really crucial clarification the source makes. Even though we are, in essence, timeless beings, time does matter. It matters immensely in this specific incarnation.
Okay, how so?
This life is described as incredibly precious, a precious incarnation here to make the most of. The goal is to ensure our soul evolution is progressing. We're here to learn to undo the error. And the course itself is presented as the structure for that. It's essentially a mind training program.
A mind training program.
Exactly. Designed to basically speed up the process to shorten the gap between living in the dream and waking up to reality.
Okay, if it's mind training, then we absolutely have to talk about the ego. The sources bring it up constantly, this idea that the ego puts up intense resistance.
Oh, absolutely. The ego is the thought system that was born from separation. It fundamentally does not want to believe the course. Its whole existence is based on maintaining fear, guilt, scarcity, and the idea that we're separate individuals.
Right.
The source speaker actually estimates that something like 99% of our everyday thoughts are probably ego thoughts.
99%.
Yeah, which means the ego is pretty much running the show most of the time, constantly trying to keep us mindless, unaware.
Wow, 99%.
Yeah.
Isn't this mind training thing then asking us to fight a totally unwinnable war? Like 99 against 1 every single minute. How does the ego actually keep us mindless? What does that look like?
That really is the core challenge, you're right? The ego keeps us mindless by constantly directing our focus outward
Hmm,
onto forms, bodies, possessions, conflicts, differences, and crucially, by using judgment.
judgment.
Yeah. Judging ourselves, judging others, it constantly reinforces the idea of separation. It makes us feel guilty when we perceive failure. It makes us point fingers when others seem to fail. All of this just validates the idea that we're separate, flawed individuals rather than one unified being having a shared mistake and
So
experience.
vigilance is key then.
Vigilance is everything. It means constantly, consciously questioning the source of your thoughts. Is this thought coming from love, from unity? Or is it coming from fear, from separation? That's the ongoing practice.
That level of vigilance sounds exhausting, honestly. If the ego is that powerful, that pervasive, where does the help come from? How do we get spiritual assistance in this internal battle?
Good question. The sources outline two main avenues of assistance. They're described as internal resources, though they can seem to manifest externally sometimes. First, there's the Holy Spirit. Now, in the context of the Course, this isn't necessarily presented as a traditional religious figure. It's more like the part of our own mind that remembers unity. It's the bridge or the translator between our sleeping ego mind and our awake higher self. It offers guidance, correction, intervention.
A bridge within our own mind.
Okay,
Okay. And the second source of help.
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah. The source describes Jesus not just as a historical figure, but as a real accessible being who fully achieved the Christ status, that state of total unified consciousness, complete awakening.
Okay.
And the teaching is that we can literally call on him to help us. That this awakened being who understands the dream because he went through it can literally walk in our shoes on our behalf, helping to shift our perception instantly from fear back to love. It's presented as a very active, very present help available to anyone studying this path.
That sounds like, well, definitely a lifetime commitment, not something you just master in a few workshops or years.
Oh, absolutely. The source speaker shares this really powerful perspective they heard from another lifelong learner. Someone who said that even after 25 years of dedicated study, they still consider themselves basically a beginner.
25 years and still a beginner.
Yeah. It really puts the difficulty into perspective, doesn't it? Undoing a collective thought system that's potentially millennia old. It's not a quick fix. So the consistent encouragement is simply just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah. Trust that the answers, even the really radical ones, will start to make sense over time because the process itself is about gradually, persistently, patiently undoing the ego's grip. It takes time.
We have really gone into some deep radical territory today. We looked at this profound idea that sickness, war, all suffering might actually stem from a collective choice, a choice for separation and guilt.
Mm-hmm. Deep stuff.
We talked about how this philosophy sees our everyday reality as a kind of waking dream, and that real healing isn't about fixing things on the outside, but about intense mind training and, crucially, forgiveness, total forgiveness.
And the final word from these sources really is this blend of hope and urgency. The message is clear: don't waste the incarnation. Keep striving, keep working on whatever path truly resonates with your soul's journey.
Right.
Because the hopeful core premise is actually quite simple. If we collectively caused all this separation and suffering in our mind, then the healing, the return to eternity, is absolutely possible, also in our mind.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought for you, the listener, to
Yeah.
really mull over. If the entire human condition, bodies, sickness, fear, war, everything, is merely the result, the symptom of one initial collective thought of separation, just consider how radically empowering that is, and also how deeply challenging it is. To accept that the power to create heaven on earth rests entirely on changing that single deeply ingrained thought, one vigilant, mindful correction at a time. Think about that next time you feel overwhelmed or frustrated by the state of the world.